The cry of a child in many a home is a source of joy. You find that friends and family will gather to celebrate whether you have a girl or whether you have a boy. After a while, the mother is saying she's my mini-me. The father is saying he's my mini-me if it's a girl or if it's a boy. Then they begin to say daddy, they begin to say mommy. Sometimes after a period of time, you find that the speech movement becomes slow. Some begin to say it's a spiritual attack. Some say it's from our village, it's from our ancestors. Or most of the time you find that parents deny what really is happening right before them. And for what we've come to learn, it may be the onset of a medical diagnosis that could say that that child or those children have intellectual disabilities. From what we hear, there's mild, there's moderate, there's severe, and there's profound. And oftentimes, to be absolutely sure that it's time to begin to manage your child in a special way because they have special needs, you need a medical diagnosis. Welcome. It's Weekend Deal. Today our focal point is on children with intellectual disabilities. It's also April Fool's Day. 3 things you need to know. It's earmarked all over the world. Of course, it takes off on the first day of April, and it involves practical jokes. Perhaps we'll play 1 or 2 here on the show. My name is Thelma Obaza. You know how we do? We want to share with you, we want to talk with you, we want to tell you what we've been doing the past week, talking about in-depth analysis and research. We let Francis set the tone for our conversation, and he's been on the trail of matters concerning children with intellectual disabilities. First, you identify them. Then you understand them so they can be properly managed, and then support comes first from love and kindness. Francis, share more.
Children are gifts from God, and blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. But what happens when a child is identified to have intellectual disability?
When you have a child with an intelligent IQ measuring below 70, the normal, it should be 100 and above. But once it measures below 70, we say there's elements of intellectual difficulty there. But when it's combined with problems with adaptive functioning, things like walking, dressing themselves, crawling, and once there are delays and all sorts of things attached to those, then we'll say there's a degree of intellectual disability or mental retardation.
Intellectual disability could cause a child to learn and develop more slowly than other children of the same age. In other words, it could take longer for such a child to learn to speak or walk without help.
The commonest cause of it generally is a genetic problem, and Down syndrome appears to be the most common one you see. Some would say, 1 in 6,000 in the US has a Down syndrome. There are other causes of it. Things like cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy itself could be caused by so many other factors. It could be at birth, the process of even the antenatal process when the baby is undergoing changes in the brain could be a damage to the brain or malformation of the brain. That in itself can cause a palsy. Or it could be in the process of giving birth to the child, where there's a lack of oxygen for some reason in the birth canal, and called the process, there's a delay, and in that process, the child's oxygen deprived or blood deprivation to the brain, and can cause that damage and cause that. Then, of course, there are issues of nutrition, falls, banging the head, and damage to the brain Those things can cause brain damage, which at an early phase in life, it leads to cerebral palsy. Then, of course, apart from Down syndrome palsy, there are so many others. Fragile X syndrome.
Usually, the more severe the degree of intellectual disability, the earlier the signs can be noticed. However, it might still be hard to tell how young children will be affected later in life. What are the signs to watch out for?
You see the round face. You see the occiput. That's the back of the head is flat. You see the eyes, the features around the eyes going up there. You see the nose, the features of the nose, the large tongue. They stick out their tongue a lot because it's too large for the mouth. Half of them will have heart defects. So a number of issues. They'll have issues with hearing at birth. And at birth too, they hardly cry. Most babies at birth, you'll hear the loud cry. But once they're damage to the brain, it's a weak cry. And then maybe the baby's color. We expect baby at birth to be pink, red, because blood flows. But when it's blue, black, and they're struggling to resuscitate the child, you begin to suspect that there might be an issue.
While children with intellectual disabilities are often neglected by people around them, some parents know their children have the problem, but the fear of stigmatization won't allow them to seek for help.
Parents and family undergo the grief reaction, disbelief, and no, we're not going to accept this. It's not in our family. God forbid. All those sort of things. And then you start thinking, oh, we're under attack. It's evil, it's Satan, it's our neighbor, is this attacking us? So all those things go through, and it's a process, can go for months. And then denial. You'll say, no, it's not happening, it's not us. No, it's not ours. It's not ours. So it takes a long while before families accept. And these are the primary carers. How much more visitors?
Despite all the efforts to increase awareness about children with intellectual disabilities, there is still the challenge of misconception or myth about intellectual disabilities.
I have overheard families who would say the fact that they slept with their wives during a particular period in the menstrual cycle, in the cycle, led to this. Okay, that is not true. It does not affect the outcome of pregnancy in any way. There are those who will tell you because somebody ate mango or coconut water, somebody drank coconut water during the pregnancy, this led to giving birth to a child with learning difficulty. That's not true. It's even worse when a child comes out and the child is having epilepsy, seizures. They tell you it's evil spirits. They got into that woman when she was, and she'll remember at some point that somebody touched her tummy. That's a very funny one. The truth of the matter is these are all attempts to rationalize what has happened. We do not have a cure for intellectual disability. However, there are various management interventions that would actually assist the child to live a life close to as normal as possible. For example, if we have issues about IQ, intelligence, there are various kind of games and little things can be playing with the child at an early stage that will enable them to develop in that area.
Our focus on Weekend Deal today will be on managing children with intellectual disabilities.
When Francis sets the tone, it provides clarity and some level of in-depth understanding so that we can continue the conversation like we're about to do now. Let's meet and greet Dr. Douglas Emeka Ofo. He's a friend of the house. He's been here several times. Consultant neurosurgeon. Great to have you.
It's Okotel, man. Very nice to actually have me again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a neurosurgeon with a fantastic sense of humor. Okay, it's also time to welcome UNICEF Education Manager, Nigeria Country Office, Jotaro Sakamoto.
Yeah, thank you for having me today.
It's great to have you on the show. Children with intellectual disabilities.
Intellectual disability is just about individuals, children who actually have significant limitations in their intellectual and adaptive functioning. Okay, and we can look at some components, look at things like the conceptual, the social, and the practical. So conceptual, things like just the learning skills, reading, writing, calculus, maths. Okay, they struggle with those things. Social, in terms of communicating, in terms of social interactions and stuff like that, they struggle. And then, of course, when it comes to practical, just the activities of daily living, being able to actually look after themselves, help themselves, do stuff in the workplace and all that. So they struggle with all these things. So when you're talking about learning intellectual disabilities, you're actually looking at the intellect, the mental capacity. Okay, and of course, like I said, there's the issue of the social and adaptive function as well. Conversely, learning disabilities, people with learning disabilities actually generally will have average or actually super intelligence. Okay,
some are geniuses.
Yeah, they're geniuses. Albert Einstein, Winston Churchill, they all had learning difficulties. So they actually have average or superior intellect, but the key thing is that they have deficiencies in one of the areas of learning. So they might have difficulties reading, they might have difficulties writing, they might have difficulties with calculus, maths and stuff like that. But overall, they actually function generally in terms of their social interactions and stuff like that. So those are the main key differences.
So it takes us identifying, managing, supporting early
detection,
so that they can stand out in areas where they're in areas where they really have what it takes to shine. Let me just talk to you a bit before we take our next feature. You talked about what you have found, 3.5 million children. So what's next? What are you urging? What are you supporting Nigeria to do, like the federal government, for example?
Okay.
Talking about education for these children.
So the 2016 policy on inclusive education for the children with disability, aims to expand or increase people's understanding of inclusive education and their collaboration. And then this aims to also address the need for the adapted curriculum and increase the teachers' capacity to support the children. So we have a policy there, but the challenge is how can we put this policy, translate this policy into the practice on the ground. And then currently there is no clear process for determining nature and also the extent of the children's disability at the school to provide a tailored support to the children. And also at the same time, curriculum need to be more flexible. Teachers need to be trained in the inclusive pedagogy. And then also the differentiated materials need to be available at each school depending on the children's needs. So we need to think a little bit broader, not just in whether the policy exists, but whether this country has a system, capacities, and resources to make this policy happening on the ground.
But everything is doable when all hands are on deck. We're working together with innovation. And when we collaborate together, we think great things are possible. But we'll come back to talk about that. In Akure, there's some focus about stigma and discrimination for these special needs children. Akure will take it from here.
Learning disabilities are conditions that impair one's ability to acquire knowledge and skills needed for independent living and social functioning. This disorder can manifest in different forms in individuals, such as dyslexia, which is difficulty with reading, dyscalculia, difficulty with mathematics, dysgraphia, difficulty with writing, dyspraxia, also known as sensory integration disorder, which is difficulty with fine motor skills, dysphasia, difficulty with language, auditory processing disorder, difficulty with hearing differences between sounds, and visual processing disorder, difficulty interpreting visual information.
Down syndrome is one of the common causes of learning disabilities, which has genetic causes. Due to some lifestyle, more than smoking, more than using some psychoactive substances, more than using alcohol, this can affect development of the brain of the baby inside, and when eventually is given birth to, we may begin to see some degree of learning disability.
When the child is already 10 years old, 12 years old, 15 years old, they'll start bringing, hey, my child cannot walk, my child cannot run, he cannot do this, he or she cannot do that. It's not supposed to be.
It's not uncommon for parents to deny any form of negative opinions that people might have about their children. And this one would not even be an exception. So it's normal for parents to feel this way. Even when you're telling them their children are having one thing or the other, they tend to say no. They deny it until a long time. And this may not really work well for the children because early intervention does it for these children.
Contrary to the general erroneous belief about children with learning disorder, they can overcome this condition with proper support from family members and the society at large.
I also had a child like that. I still have that child, but I'm saying that the condition, because it was at the early stage, that my child was, he had a mild dyslexia, and so at the early stage of his life, it was a huge challenge for us anyway. But then, through the right therapies and support, and through prayers majorly, that same child that was dyslexic at a point in his life when he was just growing up ended up to become the person with the highest JAMB score in Ondo State last JAMB that was written, that was in last year, and had the highest score in Babcock. And he's studying computer science as I speak with you now. So parents should not assume that because they had such issues, the end suddenly came about their children.
They should be directed to occupational therapists. Occupational therapy has to do with the holistic part of that child. The child's play, the child's feeding, the child's everything that has to do with that child.
Government need to do more to engage people who are trained. There are many people who are trained but they are not employed to function in an organized institution where people can readily access them.
Children with learning disorder are not in any way less important to their counterparts who are free from this condition. All they need is our love, care, and inclusiveness. With this, they can surmount their challenges faster and better than we can imagine.
That's why we talk about identifying, then getting understanding. That is in-depth knowledge, so you can manage and support. And your love and kindness is not misplaced, so you know the direction that you should place it, when and how. Dr. Douglas, we're talking earlier, and now we're going deeper into the issue. In most cases, we hear of stigma and discrimination. In fact, there are many homes in Nigeria where these children are never seen. It's a rumor on the streets that there's one special child there. They say there's a child, and some people have not seen the child. 10 years as neighbors, you don't know that special child that is specially kept, and we don't know what does that portend. Is it child better hidden?
Usually, most of the time, you're actually finding out all these issues of their limitations in their intellectual capacity or their social function or adaptive function, usually school age, okay, from like 3 years. But when you actually have those who are either moderately or severely impaired, okay, you actually find them much earlier in the infant period and stuff. So you see things like, for example, they have delayed milestones. They are not walking on time, rolling on time, sitting, standing on time, not talking on time, potty training. Okay, potty training is delayed. It is delayed. So
challenging.
It's challenging. So in terms of the mild forms, you'll pick them up in school where they are struggling with all the different learning skills that we talked about, and of course all the adaptive and social interactions in school age for the mild forms. And like I said, for the moderate severe forms, you pick them earlier on with some of these symptoms that I've just talked about.
But there is hope.
There's always hope.
Interesting. Mr. Jotaro, tell us, there's funding? Is there funding? What we lack, what you have come to find, what do we lack in Nigeria? Because we have a policy and there's some funding available as well. And you are bringing even more funding. Or are you?
Yes, we have a partnership to bring more funding to support the government to strengthen the system to provide education for the children with disability. But I think our fundamental issue is our mindset. We talked about the stigma, but let's say that disabilities are not something wrong with the person. The people have a disability not because their family is cursed or they did something deserve it, but this misconception is still around in the school and the community. So we all have a responsibility to change it, and then it's not the policy or system to change it. It asks people like local communities, parents, our children, young people, businesses, including media, political leaders, and maybe foreigners like me. We have all responsibility to change the narratives of the disability in the country. And then this will start from the awareness raising and the changing the mindset of the people. I think this is the most important starting point to change the landscape of the children with a disability and their education.
We have a mindset issue. Nigerians, change your mindset. While you are working in your mindset and sending in your messages, let's touch base with Lena. Lena has been pursuing information about relevant and existing government policies to promote education for our children with intellectual disabilities. And from what I hear, one of the findings, key findings, love, support, and giving back after some of these children have been trained. Lena, take it from here.
Education must be inclusive. As such, all children, including those with disabilities, have the right to qualitative, functional and effective basic education. But how well are the disabled included in this process?
Apart from schoolwork, we also did something like decoration, and these are some of the things we did. I'm happy to do it, to decorate house, office, and classes.
Looking at access to education in Nigeria, what is obtainable for this group of children? Is there a federal government educational policy in place for children with disabilities?
The Federal Ministry of Education has left no stone unturned in ensuring that these children get the right education as their birthright. As a result of that, there are policies that have been developed and are also being reviewed from time to time. We have the National Policy on Special Needs of Education in Nigeria and its implementation guidelines. This policy was developed in 2015. Then we also have the National Policy on Inclusive Education. This policy was developed in 2017. Whatever policy we do them here, and we ensure implementation.
Has the policy had any impact on your child's education?
The impression I have about the school is they are doing positively well. And my call to the parents is they should be up and doing. They shouldn't leave these children at home. There is ability in disability. They should bring these children to the school so that at least the teachers can assist in making sure that they make the children to become some people tomorrow.
And for people to know that there is ability in this disability. You've seen what our children can do. They can even do more than that. Tell people about us. We are proud of Nigeria. We can do more than this.
What can be done to improve the education of children with disabilities?
We are trained as special educators to handle them. So the issue of handling them is not a problem because this school has existed for many years now. Right from 1999 when this school was established, we've turned out so many children to secondary school and even to higher institutions.
Message we are teaching is love. If I don't love these children, I will not be able to cope. That's the truth. But with patience and love that I have for them, make me to achieve this. It's not easy. I'm facing some challenges. Some will not even hear what I'm saying. But to the glory of God, you can see the ability in them.
I graduated from this school. Now the school still see the need to return me to serve as a volunteer staff to train children also how to make the palm slippers so that we will not be reliable to our parents.
This is the local mat. They use the whole thing in the house. The basket that we use. All this is made from the palm tree leaf.
The federal government's policy on inclusive education for people with disabilities is a positive step towards ensuring that every child has access to quality education. However, more needs to be done to ensure that the policy is fully implemented and that the needs of those children are met.
To the parent and the public, no child should be denied the right to go to school. So even if you have a child with a disability ensure that you take that child to the right school where he or she can learn better.
No matter the level of disability, never discourage anyone who continually makes progress. Rather, encourage them.
Well, Magdalene was not relaxing this week gone by. She was unrelenting because there's much talk about the National Health Insurance Scheme. And now, talking about these are special children with intellectual disabilities. What's the provision for them? Are they included? Magdalene, tell us, what did you find? World Health Organization. Over 1 billion people, which is about 15% of the global population, live with one form of intellectual disability or the other. Just to mention but a few, this includes children born with cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, epilepsy, as the list remains endless. However, in respect to health challenges in Nigeria, statistics revealed that in the year 1999, the federal government established the National Health Insurance Scheme for every family in Nigeria to access easy and quality medications with an affordable cost, irrespective of their status. How well did this act cover children with intellectual disability?
National Health Insurance Scheme policies is meant for all Nigerians, including children with disabilities and intellectual disability, respectively. Now, as an individual, you are entitled to enroll yourself, your family, in National Health Insurance Scheme. Some issues could be that some parents don't know that they can individually access the scheme aside belonging to an organization or a particular MDA. Now, it works like this. National Health Insurance Scheme, of course, you know that persons with disabilities are deliberately excluded from all scheme of things. But with the consistent and strategic advocacy in Nigeria today, our issue is beginning to come to the front burner, going by the hospitality of our President Muhammadu Buhari, who signed disability bill into an act today, which is a working document, is a legal document upon which we can seek for our rights. As it stands now, it is my plea that every organization should affirm to abreast themselves with the Provision Disability Act and its implementation.
Experts say it has become worrisome that despite the inclusion of children with intellectual disability in the 1999 bill, a lot of children still suffer neglect, abuse, and stigma due to improbable handling by the health sector.
The medical doctor sees disability as a disease that needs to be fixed. Now, most parents who are also not enlightened on how to manage these children, not even how to access medical services for them too, need to be sensitized because there are professionals that handles these children, which are called special education teachers, and there are occupational therapists as well. They are in the hospital, they are in special school and all forms. These are means where these children with intellectual disability can access medical services and still stay healthy and function properly in the society. So to say, parents who are not informed should take advantage of this advocacy to access these social services in special school, occupational therapies, pediatric section of hospitals to ensure that these children function independently. In our community, we have the advocacy champions of disability. These advocacy champions, which are also stakeholders in society, is ranging from the government, the pastor, the traditional institution, even the market women, the pressure group, the civil society. Everybody has a role to play in this, which is to say, the implementation of all the provisions in Disability Act, United Nations Convention on the Right of Persons with Disability, the Nigerian Constitution itself, the Child Rights Act, the VAP Act, to name it, all these acts I've mentioned has the interest of these children enshrined in it because they have right to life, right to health, right to education, right to social life. So where we are holding the government to account is the implementation of the policy.
Statistics also added that children with intellectual disability typically have poorer health status and greater limitations throughout their lifetime if they are not put to check under medical supervision. Therefore, the federal government has been urged to help improve access to healthcare and disability in general through the expansion of the National Health Insurance Scheme in all the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, and to also avail all medications affordable at a cheaper rate with more sensitization around rural areas as well. Magdalene, she spoke with Muba Beatrice, and Beatrice has taken us on another tangent entirely. She's advocating keenly that there should be more inclusiveness with the medications, with the medical knowledge, and that's what Dr. Douglas will tell us a bit more. It does seem like there's interest. Some work has been done, but as always, there's still some more that can be done.
You're absolutely right, Thelma. I think the key word here is vulnerable groups. Okay, that's the key word, vulnerable groups. And so when you look at vulnerable groups, you look at children, you look at the elderly, and you look at people with disabilities. Okay, a country with its governments and its people who do well are people who actually look down on people who are vulnerable and always actually extend that hand to them. And so when I say all the key players, of course, government, you talked about the healthcare professionals, we need them to start doing more work in terms of showing care. Yeah, okay, we need them, us, to keep doing more work. When it comes to the issue of the health insurance schemes across board, the national one, and then you have different state ones, do we have traction? Do we have the numbers that we need, especially when we say we want to actually support, even if for just basic health care, okay, for the vulnerable groups, for example? No, we do not. Okay, so again, if you look at the key issues of legislations and policies and white papers, we have enough of them. When it now comes to the issue of coordinating, investing, okay, you only invest in things that you think are important, even as an individual. Okay, so we want national, subnational governments to actually know that, hey, your vulnerable groups, you need to actively invest in them. And so that should actually play out in the social health insurance scheme at national and also subnational levels as well.
It must
because like I always say, Thelma, the Nigerian patients are worth it.
They are indeed, they are. And thank you for reminding us of that. Mr. Sakamoto, let's wrap it up together.
Yes, so UNICEF's mission is to protect the right of the children, and with a particular focus on the most marginalized children. And when we talk about who excluded from the education, we often pay attention to the children from the poor families, rural areas, or the ethnic and language minorities, and people who are displaced because of the conflict. And then in Nigeria, we have paid less attention to the children with disability. They are the most marginalized but hidden in this country. So we need to make the concerted effort to bring their profile up to in front of the education policy and the programs, so that they will be visible and they receive the necessary support from all the communities. So I think this is an important point we should make in this country.
Interesting. We must bring them to the fore. They must be visible, and the policies must impact each and every one of them. We thank you, Mr. Jotaro Sakamoto, UNICEF Education Manager, Nigeria Country Office. It's been great chatting with you. Dr. Douglas Emeka Oko, Consultant Neurosurgeon. It's been great, as always, having you come remind us of our key responsibilities.
Always a pleasure, Thelma. Always a pleasure.
Great, thank you for coming. It's Weekend Deal. Our children are center stage today, especially those with intellectual disabilities. We'll go on a break. We'll be back. Don't go away. Weekend Deal. Watching Weekend Deal, where today we're showing love and kindness and particular attention to our children with intellectual disabilities. We are all doing it together. That way we can go further and we can go faster. From Calabar now, we're taking a look at myths. Myths, you know what myths are? Sometimes they are cultural stories, and sometimes there's little or no iota of truth in them, especially as it pertains to our modern day existence. From Calabar, let's see what they're willing to share with us today.
Intellectual disability is a term used when a person has a certain limitation in cognitive functioning and skills, including communication, social and self-care skills. Children born with these limitations learn slowly and develop differently.
Children with intellectual disabilities are among other form of disorders that come under neurodevelopmental disorders like autism, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, conduct disorders, cerebral palsy. These are special children to us because they have special needs. Some of them may have problem with feeding. Some of them may not be able to take care of their basic needs generally. So they're usually dependent on their caregivers. And for those who do not have any problem with their development in terms of their motor abilities, in terms of movement, they will need multidisciplinary approach in their management.
These are caused maybe by different categories of disabilities, like those born with Down syndrome that have an extra chromosome, and then it affects their way of their behavior, their intellectual ability.
Children with intellectual disability might have a hard time letting others know their wants and needs. It could take longer time for a child with intellectual disability to learn how to speak, walk, dress, or eat without help. How then can they be managed?
To manage them, you have to know the category and the degree of their intellectual disability before you'll be able to manage them. We have those who are severely intellectual disabled, those who are mild, and other categories. So children with intellectual disability can be managed by only special teachers and other caregivers.
Despite all the efforts to increase awareness about children with developmental disabilities, they still battle rampant misperceptions and myths. These children are often stigmatized, while some are regarded as demonic. These negative perceptions encourages stereotypes that are unfair to these children and their families.
From my own experience, my own daughter is doing very well. She was among the 12 students that graduated from their department. She went for youth service, came out very well, and it wasn't up to 3 months. She got a job. She got her first job, and within 6 months she changed and got another job. She's doing very well.
We need to create awareness on them to make sure that we let the society know that these people are human beings, and that if given them necessary love and provide the necessary environment with the necessary attitude and character towards them, they'll become wonderful people.
You don't need to abandon the child. You have to take care of the child. Let the child feel belong. Send the child to school.
I really love myself, yes. I love my people. They love me.
Children with intellectual disabilities are human beings. They are unique in their own ways. They deserve care, empathy, support, and a conducive environment to thrive. The time is now.
The time indeed is now. We're learning that it takes a village to train a child. It also takes a child, that special group of children with intellectual disabilities to reawaken our consciousness that we are all in it together. They have a right, we have a right, we have a role together. And we'll be doing it with those who have integral knowledge about how to identify, manage, and support these are special children. Victoria Ogunjobi is a special needs educator. Great to have you on Weekend Deal.
Thank you for having me.
Blessing Ngape, Dyslexia Help Learning Academy.
Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Good. We just heard from Calabar about myths and misconceptions about intellectual disabilities. And you were telling me about one when you were young in school and what some children face?
Yes, so, you know, most people would always ask me what's my interest, specifically in what I do with children with dyslexia. In school, in primary school, you know, I knew there were kids who just couldn't learn, or it was quite difficult. And you know, well, flogging in schools is actually how we think kids will learn better. But you know, there is a point to where they flog you that you would assume that, okay, this flogging has, now I should be able to learn, right? But these kids kept being flogged, kept being punished. And because it was a community school, I can clearly remember that most of them had to drop out of school. And each time I travel, I still see some of them who have either gone into drugs or had to get married early. So when I started learning more about disabilities and I got trained, I really got interested in this because I was like, okay, these kids can learn. My friends, my peers would have been able to learn, but teachers didn't know what the problem was. And I'm telling you that these teachers categorically told the parents that you would have to drop this child to go learn a business because school is not for this child. But that is not true. These kids can learn. This is what has fired up my passion in this field.
Interesting. Victoria, you've been working with children with special needs.
Yeah.
Tell us about what the experience has been like. What kind of children, what is it, your experience per day when you meet with special children?
The children with special needs, like Blessing said, they can actually learn. It requires patience and love to be able to interact with these children. Sometimes when you come into the academy, the first thing we need to do is we accept them because we have an understanding of who they are. We have an understanding of the struggles they are going through. So we would not want to complicate issues. So we have to break down complex subjects so that they will be able to understand better. That's one thing we do. Another thing is to apply the multisensory approach. When I mean multisensory, we are making use of the videos, we are making use of the audios, we are making use of hands-on learning. We take them outside so that they can actually learn, so that they would understand the concepts we are trying to pass across to them. Also, we give them brain breaks. Now, brain break, because this intellectual disability deals with the brain. So it's the ability of the brain to carry out some functioning skills which they lack. So we take them out, we give them breaks, so that by the time they are coming back to the classroom, they understand what is being learned.
Victoria, you were telling us earlier about how you make these children more independent, because it is key. They are coming to you so you can help them stand. How well situated are you to position them to be more independent, taking care of themselves, eating, sleeping, their daily needs and hygienic routines?
Okay, so because intellectual disabilities focuses on limitation in adaptive behavior, that's the inability for them to be able to dress properly. When they come into the academic, one thing is important here, getting the support from the home. So we inform the parents, they need to bring it, because some of them too, they don't have the ability to brush their teeth. So we get those resources from their parents. We show them videos on how to. So we take them into the restroom, we show them how to. We break them into simpler steps so that they will be able to comprehend. So by the time you are showing them, they are trying it. The next time, they would be able to do it. So the key thing here is patience.
And
like
love.
Yes,
And
patience.
kindness.
So we have to be much more patient with them. We are not going to expect a miracle. We are not going to expect them to, okay, immediately I introduce you to this thing, then you get it. No. So we keep following through until there is a change. Until they get it.
And they do get it.
Yes,
Let's
they do
tell
get
us,
it.
like when you're teaching them, are they excited? Do they get frustrated? Are they happy to learn?
Well, different days, different emotions. Yes, because like we always say as educators, expect bad moods too, because they are humans. I mean, you can obviously see that there are some days you're very excited, happy. There are some days you're not just happy. So we have those days. We have days that they're excited to learn. And if you want to have more days that they're excited to learn, then you should always have interesting ways to teach them how to learn.
So you must be innovative.
Yes, you must be very creative. I mean, they should always look forward to your classes because, okay, today maybe we use cars to learn a particular thing. Today, what are we using? They just know that, oh, anytime I'm coming into a class with Miss Blessing, something exciting is going to happen.
So visual aids are
yeah,
key,
and she spoke about multisensory approach. So you're ensuring that you have visual aids, ensuring that you have the kinesthetic, that is where tactile, they are feeling it, they are doing it by themselves. So they are not only watching or they are not just hearing, but you're engaging them. Because when you engage them, they are able to do that by themselves more. So you have days where they are happy to learn. You have days where they might be frustrated, and probably because of kids who have delayed speech. Kids who have delayed speech, and that's because they are not able to tell you how they feel. They are not able to tell you how they feel, and due to that, they might get frustrated. But with love, with patience, creative ways of teaching them, you're always going to have an amazing time. Yes, in the classroom.
It's a lifetime.
It's a lifetime.
It's a lifetime experience. Let's talk about their cases of abuse, and we know that because they are not as fast in terms of expression or adaptive techniques as many other people in society, sometimes they can be abused.
Yes, and I think that is such an emotional part, because most of these kids are, and some of these parents can't even come out because, well, it's bad enough that my child has a disability, and now letting people know that my child has been abused. And it's one of the reasons why, you know, we keep going back to care, we keep going back to love, because you need these kids to be able to open up to you. You need to know them, to be able to know when something is wrong. I might not speak, but if I sit in a way that I'm tensed and anybody gets in here, they should be able to wonder that something happened. Yeah, even if I don't say a word. So you need to know your kids. You need to spend time with them. And if you have a child like that, try as much as possible to keep them away from helps. I know most times you want to drop the whole burden on helps. I mean, you really, exactly, you don't want to do that, because they can get tired, and one, even if it's a female, maybe female to female child, they might abuse them physically, because when you're getting frustrated, next thing is to you know, and all of that. And then sexually, I mean, recently I was asking that, did this child come only with the male driver? I mean, you shouldn't let that happen. Someone should, a female should be with that child, always, not just the male driver, because anything can happen, and that child can tell you what happened on the way. The driver might just say, there was traffic, went to get fuel, you know, and you need to always check your kids. You know, I love a particular parent that said, I noticed I was washing my daughter up, and I noticed, I was like, oh, that's nice. You need to check. You need to always know when something, you can't be private. Yes. Bait them, check, look at their private parts, look at them, what's happening, anything, any different? Are they touching their private parts? Are they acting like it's hurting? You want to be very sure. You need to also know at every point in time, where is your child? So if anything happens, you can go back and say, okay, here, okay, there. And even with the restroom that she was talking about, you know, we try as much as possible to ensure that the doors are open. Yes, the door is open. Yes, exactly, and you're not there alone. There's someone who can witness that you're just helping the child learn how to change. And of course, we're not going to send a male with a female or a female with a male. We're sure that if there are male kids, we try as much as possible to have the male teachers go in there as well. So parents need to be extremely careful, because there are rates of abuse. I know there was even abuse of teachers. So you just need to be aware. Even with the teachers, you need to be aware. You need to check your kids often.
Interesting. You know, it can even cause trauma, emotional trauma for the guardians or anybody the caregivers. If you find out that at some point, you know, a window, a gap was left where, you know, some not so nice, some devious character stepped in and caused more damage.
It's been, a lot of people have started showing interest, and you know, especially teachers, because I run a training and you see teachers saving up, you know, doing all they can to make sure they get this training. So I would say hearts are being opened, and that is because people are taking responsibility individually. A teacher is saying, oh, I have this child in my class, I don't know how to help that child. Rather than wait for the school, they decide to take initiative to help. So you have individuals taking initiative, you have schools, private schools taking initiative, and even as much as we wait for the government, I think the way forward right now, as we wait for the government, because we've been waiting for a very long time, is for individuals to take responsibility. You have uncles saying, I have a child, I have a niece who has a disability, I want to learn more, people learning more in the workplace. So when we have people individually, you know, doing all they can to learn about this, I mean, it gives us more hope.
We go further and faster.
Yes.
Thank you, Blessing. Victoria, what are you adding? What is that special thing that people like you, caregivers as special as Victoria, are bringing to the table for our special children with intellectual disabilities?
Okay, understanding the uniqueness in every child, you know, gives me the hope that there is a better future for this child. So waking up, coming to the academy, I'm like, I have to change this child. There is a child looking up to me for help. There is a child looking up to me for assistance. So I keep researching. I just want to find ways or means in order to ensure that the best is being discovered in the life of this child.
Wow, you know, I want to be like Victoria and Blessing when I grow up.
You're doing
It's
well.
a challenge for all of us. Let all of us take responsibility.
Yes.
These indeed are our children. Thank you, Victoria Gunjobi, special needs educator. Thank you, Blessing
Thank
Ngapi,
you.
Dyslexia Help Learning Academy. This lady, this young lady, is the birth parent of this academy. We say well done to you.
Thank you
Keep
so
pushing
much.
the boundaries.
Thank you.
You're watching Weekend Deal. For us, this is the high point of today. You know, during the week, we at the NTA, especially staff of programs nationwide, we gathered at the A-Class Event Center at Maitama in Abuja to do something that in a way it broke our hearts to say we're sending forth someone who is so loved. In fact, the word that kept recurring throughout the event was iconic, broadcast veteran, innovator. We sent forth Wole Koka, outgoing Executive Director, Programs at the Nigerian Television Authority. Ene and Marian captured it.
Handsome, is it true? Money is selfless, is it true? Money is a humanitarian. If you agree with me, let me hear you say yes. Oh yeah, nítorí bàbá Wole Koka, ẹ jẹ́ n sáré lọ sábẹ́ òkúta kí n gbé. Àwa ọmọ Olúwa, àwa ọmọ Olúwa.
There are many reasons why great men and women, for that matter, are remembered. One of them is for the good that they do and the lives they impact positively. One of such people is the indefatigable Wole Koka, Executive Director of Programs, who retires from dedicated and active service at the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA.
He's so calm about making sure it happens. At every point in time, he doesn't even mind going behind the camera to make sure he gets the shot he needs, and we're going to miss that about him.
He has influenced all of us in different ways, especially those of us in the engineering, in directorate, in so many different areas.
He has served as a counselor to me several times. You know, NTA job can be very tough. So sometimes you experience a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. And when I see him, he will say, Diane, in his soft voice characteristically, how are you doing?
Apart from being an icon, he's someone who when you come close to, that's the moment he begins to mentor you if you are under him as a staff. Now the mentoring doesn't stop. It continues even when you leave the premises he is, because he mentors remotely.
It was amidst so much joy and mixed feelings that a man known to so many as the cowboy retires after 41 remarkable years. A-Class Event Center played host to this joyous celebration. It was to a hall filled with friends, colleagues, subordinates and staff that Wole Koka walked in, quite stunned because he wasn't expecting it. The surprise well planned and of course executed.
He's a man that loves humanity. He's somebody that believes in excellence, that there must be success. Who does it to him does not matter. Irrespective of where you are coming from.
He's a listener and a problem solver, a professional to the core. I'm happy to be associated with somebody like him.
Wole Kuka had a very, very excellent years as a professional cameraman, a professional producer, a professional manager, a mentor, and I think because he's also a filmmaker, the sky is his limit.
Missing not only a big boss, I'm going to miss a brother, because even though we worked in different directorates, he at programs and I was at news, he never missed a chance to put in a word where he thinks my productions, which generally are in sports, have gone wrong.
There was so much to say about the man Wole Kuka as praises encomiums and prayers flowed free and strong from grateful hearts. The aura at the event couldn't have been anything but heartwarming and beautiful. From recitations to poetry delivery and testimonies to attest to the fact that Wole Kuka is truly an enigma.
Call him Americana, but soon we learned one of his favorite expressions. What the bloody hell is that?
I've been everywhere. I've worked with almost everybody, which is heartwarming. When you know your staff by name, you know their capacity, and you help them to grow, I think when you now leave, you feel fulfilled, that you have trained people that can carry on the legacy.
Oh, and a big wow!
Baba Wole Kuka is a veteran broadcaster with vast experience in film and television production, an astute cameraman and production expert. Having many productions to his name, he brought in top class, desire, passion for professionalism and quality programming as a whole. Up till his retirement, he was the executive director of programs. And suffice it to say, Wole Kuka will be missed. Indeed, he is irreplaceable. It takes a village to raise our special children with intellectual disabilities, and together we can contribute them hope and succor. God bless Nigeria. See you again.